Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's session. My name is Askia. I'm one of the event planners for the Redmond Reactor Space. Before we get started today, I've got a few things to go over. If you could please take a moment to read our code of conduct. And basically, what that is saying is that we seek to provide a respectful environment for both our audience and presenters. We encourage engagement in the chat, but we ask that you please be mindful of your commentary, remain professional, and please stay on topic. We're going to be sharing useful links throughout the chat, so please keep an eye out for that. And we want to let you know that this session is going to be recorded and will be available on demand in about 24 to 48 hours on the Microsoft Reactor YouTube channel. And that brings us to today's session. It's scheduled to run approximately 1 hour, and there'll definitely be time for questions throughout. So with that said, I would like to bring on our speakers and let them introduce themselves.
Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Joanne, and I'm part of the Microsoft Fabric product marketing team. With me today are my esteemed colleagues, the true experts in all things Copilot and AI in Fabric. So why don't we go down the line and introduce ourselves, starting with Mo.
Hey everyone, my name is Mohammed Ali and I'm a GPM for the Power BI team. So I look after the Power BI self-service area, Power BI desktop, Power BI service, and also Copilot for Power BI.
Raj?
Hi everyone, my name is Raj Ricky. I'm a PM working on the Fabric Data Science Data Engineering team, working on Copilot for notebooks and helping empower Copilot for Fabric.
Nelly?
Hi everyone, my name is Nelly Gustafson. I lead the PM team for data science and AI in Fabric, and super excited to be here to talk to you all.
Great. We also have some folks backstage. They're behind the scenes. They'll be answering questions in the chat. So don't be alarmed. They're also part of our team. And so just a quick note on the format. So I just have a few slides that I want to go through, introduction to what Copilot and AI is in Microsoft Fabric. And then we'll keep it super light, and then we'll dedicate the rest of the time to answering your questions. Okay, perfect. Went through this already. Okay, so here at Microsoft Fabric, we have an end-to-end unified analytics platform that brings together AI, data, analytics tools that all organizations need. So you can think of Fabric as almost like a Microsoft Office for data. And just like Office has Word for documents, PowerPoint for presentations, Excel for spreadsheets, here at Microsoft Fabric, we also have the core workloads. And it's a suite of analytics tools. They share common elements, but they also share these common foundational layers in the Fabric platform, which is infused, and you see here with AI and Copilot at the core. We also have OneLake to store and collaborate on data, and Purview to manage security and compliance centrally. And so there are 3 types of AI-powered experiences in Fabric. So I'll go through these at a high level, and I'm sure we'll deep dive as we answer all of your questions later on. So the first one here is Copilot is woven through Fabric's workloads and can be used multiple ways to increase your productivity as you prepare your data for AI and for further innovation. With Copilot and Fabric, you can use natural language to get the job done, no matter what your role is. For example, for Copilot in Data Factory, you can simply describe how you want to ingest and transform the data using natural language, and then Copilot would do the rest. And another example is when you're working in a notebook in data engineering or data science, you can quickly enrich, model, analyze, and explore this data using Python and Spark. And of course, for the last figure here is Power BI. So Copilot helps to create reports, write DAX, summarize your insights into summaries just in a matter of seconds. And so Power BI empowers every business user to better understand their data with Q&A. Okay, so we talked about Copilot accelerated experiences. Now the other part I want to talk about is AI skills in Microsoft Fabric. So last year we launched AI skills, and it's been very exciting. We've had a lot of good feedback from customers. So what exactly are AI skills, and what does it help you do? So one of the big challenges with data is enabling fast insights. We have many tools, but we want to use and leverage Gen AI to help us with this. And so sometimes the prepackaged, pre-built Copilot can do a lot of this, but sometimes it just doesn't quite get us where we need. And so this is where AI skill comes in. It allows you to build a customized conversational agent, low code, to retrieve and answer questions about your specific organizational data. And you might ask, you might be wondering why this is needed. And the reason is that Microsoft, we can't possibly know everything about your domain, your organizational data processes, acronyms, etc. And so you can use AI skills to tailor that, add instructions so that it is customized to your specific business needs. Okay. So let me see. So this is actually all I have in terms of the presentation. So let's see if we can jump into the chat and see if there's any questions. So not quite. Oh, there's one that just popped up from Circularity Electronics. They're asking, are you working on a trial for the F64 license? And I'll pass that over to Mo.
Okay, so this question is interesting because we will have some announcements to kind of lower the barrier of entry for Copilot. So I think this question is specifically asking is, so because you can get a Fabric trial today, which is like an F64 for many customers today. So you can go and sign up for trial. However, trials do not include Copilot today. And that was a purposeful decision because we rely on GPUs and GPUs are very expensive. But our goal in the next couple of months is to bring down the requirements for Copilot, and we'll be hopefully sharing some more cool announcements like that very soon. So please watch this space. But it's a very good question, and we hope to have a good answer for you very soon.
Thanks, Mo. Okay, so the next question from Bonnie: how do you enable AI skills? Nelly, do you want to take that one?
Yes, I can take this one. So the AI skills feature actually requires a number of different settings. So if you've already enabled the Copilot and AI tenant setting for that, that's a big step. But given that it's also a public preview features, all public preview features in Fabric are also behind specific tenant settings as well. So each preview feature actually has its own tenant setting. And once you reach general availability, we remove those settings, right? So you would need to turn on the Copilot and AI setting first, and then also the AI skill setting itself. So those are predominantly the ones that you need. If you also want to use the AI skill, since we now also support semantic models, there is an additional setting. We're always looking into removing these hurdles, but at the same time want to make sure that we kind of honor the requests from various admins as well, tenant admins. There is an XMLA endpoint setting that you would need to enable today in order to use the semantic model as a data source. So those are the three main settings that you need to enable. And I can post a link in the chat with a link to the docs that clarify these things.
Perfect, thank you. And then tagging on to that, can the trial license access AI skills?
No. So trial licenses in Fabric cannot access the generative AI features today. But as Mo mentioned, we are exploring and working really hard to enable this on lower paid SKUs. So I would say stay tuned for announcements in the coming months about this.
Great. And so Robert has a good question here. Are AI skills specific to the Fabric space, and are they intended for data analysts or also the data consumer? And so I could start off because I don't think I did a great introduction to AI skills. So you're correct. AI skills is for both the developer, so the creator, and also the consumer. So when you create an AI skill, you add instructions to it, you feed it information about your specific domain. But then on the flip side, you could pass it over to other teammates who may be technical or non-technical, and they could also consume that data. So they can ask natural language questions to reason over and understand that data. But Nelly or Raj, I don't want, do either of you want to elaborate on that?
No, I mean, that's correct. So essentially the AI skill, so you create an AI skill to essentially be an expert on a specific domain of your data, right? And you add the sources, etc. Now you're a creator and you're creating this AI skill, and you're ideally a person who also has some data domain expertise. And in fact, I'll always say that it's actually teamwork creating AI skills, right? Because you may actually need someone who is very, very deep on the data. You may need someone who knows the schema well and which columns the data sits in, etc. So as you're kind of working on building out one of these experts on your data, you essentially have one creator or a team of creators collaborating and working on this. Once you're ready and thinking that, hey, I think this expert can now answer most questions related to, let's say, delivery data, then in that case, you can choose to publish the AI skill. And when you publish the AI skill, the AI skill gets a consumption endpoint, right? So we kind of activate this endpoint by the act of publishing the AI skill. And once you do this means that you can actually leverage this AI skill in other experiences. So outside of Fabric today, we have a private preview of using the AI skill with Copilot Studio. We've shown this in many conferences, right? You may have seen some of these demos, but we have a lot more coming. So I would say stay tuned. I don't want to reveal too much. Stay tuned for some of the announcements coming up at the Fabric conference next week. We're going to tell you more about ways to consume it. And we're constantly evolving these consumption experiences. And ultimately, one of the most popular channels to consume an AI skill today is from Microsoft Teams. And that's why, a lot of our users in private preview really love the integration with Copilot Studio. But again, we're working really hard to make a lot of these things public preview and get you more consumption surface areas.
Okay, great. Thanks, Nelly. So we have lots of questions in the chat about AI skills and capacity. So curious if you can elaborate on whether and how AI skills, so a question from Nikhil, how are AI skills different from AI agents in Copilot Studio?
So think of AI skills essentially agents on your data. So these data agents that are sitting in Fabric. So ultimately what the AI skill is technically is an agent. So I would really say that, what are the differences between agents? Well, they're all agents. And you're going to need many agents to solve, a lot of your solutions. There's not going to be one agent that can rule them all, right? And of course, you need a top level kind of manager agent like Copilot, for example, to be able to orchestrate and send out requests to various different agents. But especially when it comes to really curating that expertise on data, we believe that you can do that with many of these agents that you build on top of your data in Fabric, which the AI skill essentially is. So it is an agent. Technically, it is an assistant, an Azure OpenAI assistant today. That's really what it is. And the APIs that you will be able to interact with when you interact with an AI agent like the AI skill will be through one of the protocols will be the assistant or agent API that you can use. But there will be more, right? So I don't want to reveal too much here, but it is an agent, and you will need agents in many different places. So I wouldn't necessarily think that's a bad thing. It's a good thing.
Perfect. Thanks, Nelly. And hopefully we answer your question, Nikhil. So I'm going to jump down to another question. I'm going to pass this over to Mo. A question from Antonio. how can we tune AI capabilities in Fabric so that good certified semantic models get more visibility and are included in AI activities, while others are kept out of the radar for other users?
Cool. So I'll take this one. So Antonio, like, this is a really good question, and something we're working on right now that we're going to hopefully share in the coming weeks at our conference is exactly how we will basically allow consumers to see and have labeled good semantic models that are going to work well with AI and the ones that aren't. And these labels will give them a good indicator, and will basically kind of put it under the carpet on the models that don't actually have any AI modeling done to them. And so we're calling this called AI modeling or AI tooling. It kind of effectively the same tooling that you see today, where you can like give instructions, give example queries. All those will also land in the semantic models experience as well. And because you'll have an author coming in and providing that additional metadata to a semantic model, you're effectively not just certifying it, you're saying this is Copilot ready. And so we are introducing some sort of label very soon about this Copilot label, and that will then effectively give you exactly what you want. And so we appreciate that today not every semantic model is ready for AI, and so we really want to make sure that the author has complete control over that. So that's what we're working on in the coming weeks. And we'll share more on the UI of this very soon. I'm being flaky purposely because we have our major conference called FabCon, which is next week, and there'll be a ton of announcements there. You may see some view of this next week, so stay tuned.
Great, thanks, Mo. Yeah, that's a great plug for our FabCon conference. We do these twice a year, once in the US and once in Europe, and it is happening on Monday. So I'm very pleased that we can get the engineering, the product team together for today, given that there's so much happening in preparation for FabCon. Okay, great. And so we do have a question just in terms of use cases and AI skills. Yeah, it's actually really good to, like, because we hear from customers to learn a little bit more about how they're using these Gen AI capabilities, Copilot. We'll love to uncover more. And so, if you could put in the chat how you're using or planning to use these features, that would be great. Okay. I know, so that jumping back up, there were some other questions about AI skills. And so just getting into the nitty gritty, Nelly or Raj, can you address this question? Sorry if I'm getting your name incorrect, then Mosey Sampath. Can we call AI skills via APIs from external applications?
Yeah, I can take this one. So today, you can't. Today, you can call it from APIs within Fabric, but you will be able to call it externally from external applications. We're working to enable that. So you will have a REST endpoint to call. It's just not available for usage today. And we get this question a lot because I think people try to invoke the endpoint because you get a URL. It's just that we have to do some extra work there to solve the authentication all the way down to each individual data source and database engine today. And that work is what we're wrapping up. So hopefully soon we'll be able to release the REST endpoint in public preview. So you get that too.
Great. And then a question from Faber, just for understanding, AI skills, can AI skills be implemented regardless of the capacity you're running on? And how is this different from the way of consuming resources of Copilot in Fabric?
Raj, do you want to take this one?
Sorry. Sure. Yeah. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah. So absolutely. So that's correct. There's no distinction in terms of capacity consumption. When you're using the AI skill or other generative AI skills inside of Fabric. We do have another mechanism if you wanted to differentiate your Copilot consumption relative to the rest of your capacity consumption, called Fabric Copilot capacity. So that's something to keep in mind if you wanted to, let's say, for example, ensure that the generative AI capacity, let's say you have a lot of people really excited for using things like AI skill and Copilot. That's one mechanism to separate and meet out the consumption of CU. But to answer your question more directly, there's no difference in how you consume resources via Copilot if you don't have your Fabric Copilot capacity provisioned. It just consumes CU the same way everything else does.
Perfect. Thanks, Raj. So another question regarding capacity. Sanissa Behin is asking, I'm on Fabric POC, CU64 trial. Overall usage of CUs were never above 10%. Does it mean that CU32 or 16 commercial capacity will be enough?
So I can take this. So I'm not sure if you mean specifically for Copilot, because you're saying POC CU trial, which we just say Copilot doesn't work on. So I'll answer it in the generic sense that you're using Fabric, and it's great. I don't mind Fabric questions here. And you're seeing 10% utilization, or your overall CUs never go 10%. It's hard for me to give you an answer to this question because a 32 could work, or an F32 could work for this scenario, or an F16. The thing that you should look at is not just the 10% like average usage, is you should need to also look at peak usage as well. Because one of the benefits that you get with the CUs and the way we do the CU charges, you could do a ton of jobs in one go in the morning, and then we basically balance out the load for the whole day for you, so that you can then run as many, like lots of refreshes in the morning of your data, and then not be penalized for it later on. And so the problem with that 10% is the 10% is giving me the how much was it spread over, it doesn't tell me how much was your peak. And so if your peak is not at 100% and it was lower, then you could get away with an F32, F16. And the best way to kind of evaluate this is actually to either set up a pre-production environment that mimics this and actually try it out with a smaller SKU and just see what kind of performance you're getting. Or look at the detailed usage metrics and then confirm that you'll actually be able to survive with an F32. So it depends. The problem is that the 10% doesn't give me a lot of information, but if you feel like the peak usage is not at 100% or very much lower than the 100% mark, then yes, an F32 should technically help.
Great, thanks, Mo. Okay, so then there's a couple of questions actually on from Antonio. So lots of good questions. So will it be possible for an AI agent to create new composite semantic models out of existing ones if the user asks for that?
So this question could be interpreted in multiple ways, but let me take a stab at it from the composite model stance, and then I'll leave it to Raj and Nelly to answer this. So when you build an AI skill today or an AI agent inside Fabric, you can today bring in one or many semantic models already. And when you bring in one or many semantic models, I assume that's what you mean by a composite model, that you bring in many semantic models and you can answer questions, or your consumers, your business users, can answer questions against many semantic models. So that's what you want. The other thing you could do, what most customers have been doing before AI skills existed, was you can actually create a composite model inside Power BI and then use that composite model directly in an AI skill. And the way you do this today is in Power BI Desktop, when you connect to a semantic model, and then you click Get Data again and connect to another semantic model, it will then ask you to, basically, it will convert it to a composite model for you. And that basically means it's a new data set that comprises of two smaller or other data sets to make up that composite model. So both techniques do work with the AI skill experience that you get in Fabric today. So you can definitely achieve that. And if you want to then use Microsoft Copilot Studio to extend that agent further, to do more than just data functions, the great thing is you'll be able to leverage the AI skills in Copilot Studio. So you could have multiple data sets or semantic models inside a AI skill, and then the AI skill can then be used in Microsoft Copilot Studio. So hopefully that addresses the question, but it's a very good one. Thank you, Tony.
Perfect. Mo, since you're on a roll, I have another question for you. So this one is actually from Reddit. There are a lot of different mechanisms where we gather customer feedback, and Reddit is definitely one of them. And so this one is about the integration of Copilot with Power BI and Teams. So the question is, I'm currently assisting a client with setting up Copilot for Power BI service. They've expressed interest in integrating Copilot with Power BI and Teams. Despite my efforts, I haven't been able to find any information on this. Is it possible?
So again, it depends on which part of Teams you refer to here. So I'm going to answer the question to the best of my knowledge. So there is a Teams Power BI app today. So you can actually install Power BI inside the Teams, click on Power BI, and you will get a Copilot experience when you browse reports inside Power BI inside Teams. Now, I assume this is not what you mean, and so I will lead to where I think you mean. So in Teams today, you actually have a global Copilot button, and that basically means what that's called is actually the M365 Copilot experience that is available also in Teams. And yes, our goal is to bring Copilot or the Power BI Copilot inside that experience as well. So it is on the plan to enable that. That's the one I think you mean. Maybe it's the first one you meant, but our goal is to be fully rich and integrated inside the wider Copilot ecosystem in Microsoft. And so you'll see Power BI and Fabric land there very soon. And we'll share more timelines, hopefully in the coming months, about when that will release.
Perfect. And then one more question about Copilot and Power BI, just in terms of feedback loop. Is there a way to extract questions? Feedback loop is very important in any AI ML use case. This can help in continuously improving synonyms and linguistic relationships.
Is that a question for me?
For you, yes.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, so the way I understand that question is so when people use Copilot today we do not give you what they're typing in to kind of help inform that. Now, very soon, we're going to enable admins to be able to see exactly what users are typing in so they can themselves evaluate or improve models and do forth. We also want to make that data available to the authors, either through the authors of the AI skill or authors of the semantic model, so they can see what the users are asking against their semantic models. And so they can add synonyms, they could add tooling or add Copilot, change the instructions and so forth. So we are working on this feature. I don't have a timeline to share. We work in 6 months increments. So from April to October is our next 6 months plan. Don't ask me why we align to April and October. It's not my choice. So between April and October, we are working on that feature. And so we hope to have a better timeline for you. But we do understand that you want to have a completed feedback loop. And it's extremely important for you so you're not running blind. And this is a feature we're working on. So thank you for the question.
Perfect. Okay, great. And then so jumping back into this chat, the Mosey has a question. One of my customers is looking for natural language processing based querying on semantic models and expose this as a chatbot in their webpage. Is this possible in the near future? Any timelines? Who wants to take this one?
Do you want to start taking that one, Mo? Or because I mean, the AI skill could be one way this could be achieved, right?
Yeah, I think go for the AI skill way. There'll be multiple ways to do this. So you, at least the person asking the question will be happy with it. But ask them the AI skill way if you don't mind.
Exactly. So like we've added support for semantic models in an AI skill. Now you're saying like, how do I embed this in my web page? Well, we have a private preview of the Copilot Studio integration. There will be more integrations coming. So stay tuned, you know, for a couple of weeks for some things that are coming. So as you get more ways to consume the AI skill, it means that you can build this essentially agent on top of, let's say you can add one semantic model that you have in mind as a source for this, and then publish, refine, curate your AI skill and configure it, and then publish it, and then consume that endpoint. So that would be one way that you can do it. If you already have a chatbot, like a kind of already an agent that you're interacting with, then the AI skill could then be like a sub agent or a tool or a knowledge source. These, like, there are many names to kind of call these things. Many names that we can call these things, but ultimately an agent can be a tool for another agent or a knowledge source or so. So that's how you could also layer it with a multi-agent system.
Perfect.
So we'll have APIs available for you to do and create and use your own chatbots. It is working. I don't have a timeline for that, but we hope very soon.
Great. And so the next question is also about capacity. I'm going to pass this over to Raj. So the Mosey asks, once we enable any capacity as FCC Fabric Copilot capacity, is there any limitation as to how many concurrent users can use Copilot at a time? Can we limit the usage per user somehow?
I'm not sure I actually know the answer to this one.
So there is no per user limitation to my knowledge, right, Mo? Like for the Fabric Copilot capacities.
I'm just reading
that seems to be the question. And then how many concurrent users that it would serve if we have a limitation for number of users.
So we don't impose any limits apart from the capacity that you're using for the FCC. So if the capacity reaches this limit and you go over the limit, then you'll hit an issue. So it depends on whether you have an F64, F128, F256, or whatever. So we don't impose a concurrent limit. However, you do have the general limit of the capacity. So once you go over the amount you're allowed to use for an F64, and the way Copilot works today is it runs as a background operation. So over the 24-hour period, I think you can calculate how many CU seconds you're allowed to use, how many Copilot calls. But I think I shared in one of the sessions that I did a year ago that you can support a much larger number of users. When you say true concurrent is if they're all typing at the same time and hitting enter at the same time, that's really hard to kind of guess and judge. But we kind of gave rough estimates. I think I said like hundreds of users could be supported F64, 200, 500 F256, and then more concurrent, and then I'm talking about concurrent more at the F512 level. So it really depends on what you mean here. You cannot limit usage per user for Copilot today on an FCC. So one user could ask a ton more questions than another user, and that isn't something we've implemented as a limit yet. We haven't had much feedback on if there are any concerns with one user using more Copilot than others. If you guys have that feedback, we'll love to hear it, and then we can then react accordingly. But today we've been very generous by not enforcing any limits, and we tried our best to we brought the cost down for our Copilot experiences in terms of the CUs they charge. So you'll find that it's actually more easier and better for people to just continue to use Copilot. So we've done our best to kind of make this hopefully not a problem. But if you guys are seeing issues or you're not able to scale accordingly, let us know, and we'll happily respond. Sorry, I was just reading the question, so it took me a while.
No, yeah, no worries. Okay, great. So feel free to continue asking questions about capacity. I know it's a little bit complex, but happy to address here. We have a question from Robert. I'm working on a suite of RAG models for a chatbot of internal structured data. Should I consider using AI skills instead? Sounds like yes.
Yeah, I mean, you could.
So Nelly, go ahead.
I think you should definitely at least see if, because we offer support for data warehouse, lakehouse in Fabric, semantic models, and event house KQL databases. So if you have any of those sources, you should definitely, evaluate the AI skill. We work on offering the AI skill, the tools to do NL to SQL, retrieve data from the semantic models, as well as NL to KQL, which is a query language for event house databases. So if those kind of meet your requirements, if you have a set of, let's say, a test battery or some form of a ground truth data set, I do recommend that you evaluate those tools and see, how well they perform. And if you don't like something, please let us know so we can improve it. But overall, that's actually a super common pattern, given that we support a structured data in the AI skill, that many use the AI skill as a way to retrieve data over structured sources and then combine it with, traditional RAG to do vector search over unstructured data, and to be able to combine it. And I think that's also why some of these integrations like Copilot Studio and others that are upcoming will be very interesting, in that they give you essentially a place where you can combine, for example, AI search results with Fabric AI skills results.
So another note is that obviously, so AI skill is a very powerful tool. And so what Nelly had just mentioned, just in terms of the data support, we had introduced not too long ago. And so we're continuing to evolve and innovate, and really based on your feedback. And so keep giving us ideas and feedback. All right, so we have a question from Mohammed. While using Copilot, sometimes it cannot understand typos. And for me, the experience of adding synonyms and relations is very exhausting. So more of a comment, but question as to, is there anything that we're doing, Mo, Raj, Nelly, to address this challenge?
Is this Copilot in general, by the way? I would be curious. I'm assuming it's Power BI Copilot here, but
so Mo.
I can take a stab at this. So the goal is we're going to hopefully give you tooling available that will help you address this. I don't want everyone to be adding synonyms for every single thing. Like the LLMs are quite good at just understanding some very basic synonyms. However, we do understand that Copilot doesn't understand your business domain as well as you do. And so our goal is to give you tooling so you can add in, I use instructions as a generic term, but like adding metadata so you can actually at least guide it. I think at some point we'll even try to learn from the reports that you even have inside your organization, or artifacts that you have inside Power Fabric, to kind of preempt and pre-learn this as well. So there's a lot of innovation happening here for us to kind of learn from this. I hear the pain. There's a bunch of new capabilities coming out we're going to announce next week, which will hopefully address some of these issues. Like, instead of adding synonyms, can I just point things to visuals and say, use this instead? And then we learn from that visual instead. So there's a lot of interesting stuff that we're going to do to help kind of like what I call train the Copilot, or train your AI agent. And that will be landing hopefully soon.
Okay, perfect. So I don't see any additional questions in this chat, but I'm going to jump over and see what are the top questions that we have in some of our other community forums. So there is one on kind of the Power BI and how does Copilot for Power BI integrate with other Copilots in Microsoft Fabric? Is there an integration?
Does Copilot in Power BI integrate with other Copilots in Fabric? I mean, from a data standpoint, like the Copilots in Fabric, we have a Copilot per each main workload. So if you're trying to do data science and you're trying to generate Python, we have a Copilot experience there. If you're trying to use Power BI and create reports, we have a Copilot experience there. If you're trying to do SQL, which we have a Copilot in Data Warehouse, so you can generate SQL to do that. If you're trying to bring in all the different artifacts together, that's what Nelly and team shared, is you create an AI skill on top of your different data sources, and that basically allows you to create a single agent or Copilot experience that brings in data from all the different places in Fabric. So that's the answer to that question. But I'm not sure if that's what you intended by the question.
So one thing to add there, so Mo's absolutely right. So like for each Copilot experience, they're very kind of persona specific, helping you to solve something in the warehouse. And I think it would be great to understand like what cross-cutting scenarios you have. I can also understand the fact that, because we get this feedback, right, Raj? Like we get a lot of feedback in our notebook that you just want the notebook Copilot to have awareness of other things. But I know that at least for Notebook Copilot, Raj, like we did explore, I mean, kind of sharing our thoughts, right? But given that any agent can actually be a tool for Copilot, and the fact that our Copilots in the notebooks for data science and data engineering, stay tuned for some, updates there, but it's actually an agent itself, right? Do you want to add something around like this agent being able to leverage like AI skills to have more awareness?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, like I think one of the important things to remember is that providing as much context where you can is great, but having those common data sources and making them available, especially in the context of like connecting them to an AI skill or operating on them in the same lakehouse, I think is the right way to continue getting contextual answers. AI skill has this awesome feature where you can more granularly inspect the data that you're asking about and get specifics on there. And I think sharing that subset of data where appropriate will help get contextual answers where needed.
Yeah, thanks, Raj. So basically what we mean is that like one thing that we can envision is that in any Copilot in Fabric, let's start with the notebook, right? To say that you could actually reach out to say, hey, I want to call out to this AI skill for this particular question, because I just happen to curate one that just knows this data and I just need to ask a question quickly as part of coding, my solution here. So technically that's possible to do, because again, these are all agents can be tools for other agents, and a Copilot ultimately is an agent.
Great. Okay, so jumping into other common questions, I'm going to actually paste this into the chat here so we can all view it together. What is my Power BI plan when I'm on a Fabric F64? Let's say I'm the only developer with Power BI Pro and everyone else are free users. What will be the Power BI storage limit on our F64? And is Power BI data stored in OneLake?
Okay, that's a tricky question because I'm not sure if it entirely makes. There's different aspects here to the question. So, if you're using an F64 today, an F64 is like a P1 SKU. So you get all the benefits of the P1 is the equivalent of an F64. So if I am a developer on the F64 and I create a Power BI report, forget Copilot for a second, and I deploy that, everyone inside or who's using a report on the F64 can now use Power BI. They can all view the reports. The CUs for each report render is charged to capacity, and so you can scale it to everyone. Now, when you bring in the storage to this, the Power BI storage limit for a single for P1, I think it was like terabytes, 1 terabyte or some ridiculous number. I can't exactly remember in F64 what the exact hard limit is, but it's a very large number that you get for an F64 as well. And so if you were to use Power BI on an F64 today, we don't charge, like the data that's used for Power BI isn't stored in OneLake automatically. It's stored in an internal store. You can enable it to store it in OneLake. And so if you go into the options on the semantic model, you can actually tick a box that says export to OneLake, and that will actually write the data into OneLake as well for you. So we don't do that by default because I think in F64 SKUs or SKUs in general, any write to OneLake is charged. And so we don't want to automatically do that for every single use case. So we actually make you enable a toggle inside the settings, I believe. Could be wrong, but I believe there's a setting that you have to enable to kind of do that. So to answer the question is, what will be the Power BI storage limit? The storage limit is whatever the F64 limit is. There's no specific Power BI limit. And on an F64, the Power BI data today doesn't by default write to OneLake. You have to enable an option to do that writing, and that option is in the semantic model setting. And the reason why I said it's kind of odd is there isn't anything specific about Copilot there. So I assume this is just a generic question. So I answered it generically, but if it's specific about something Copilot related, feel free to add.
Perfect. Thank you, Mo. Okay. And so yeah, keep the questions coming. We're monitoring here and trying to address every question that comes through. There is a question from Dwani, and apologies if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. Is Microsoft planning to add data agent as a knowledge source in Copilot, or why can't we have some features in Copilot as that of data agent? So clarification here. When you could type in the chat if you're listening real time. Do you mean AI skills as a data agent? Because we've been calling it an agent, we've been calling it data expert. So I wanted to get clarification there. And if you are talking about AI skills, I would pass this over to Nelly to answer.
Yeah, so if you mean AI skill here, you're asking, does Microsoft plan adding AI skills and knowledge source in Copilot? And in this case, I'm going to assume that you mean M365 Copilot in Microsoft Copilot, basically. So I would say that we are, doing a bunch of things in this area, and there are going to be multiple ways in which you can make your AI skills available in kind of higher level Copilots across Microsoft, and M365 is one of them, but also maybe a Copilot that you're building. So I guess in the absence of knowing which Copilot you mean here, I think we do plan work, and we're actively working on ways where you can integrate AI skills better with more higher level Copilot experiences. So I'll kind of leave it there, and if there's clarifications, I can kind of follow up on those in the chat. Yeah, M365, I think he's saying yes. So the Copilot Studio integration that we have in private preview was the first step. And from that one, you can build a custom Copilot agent. But we are also doing additional work to get the AI skill to be able to surface in M365 in collaboration with Mo's team on the kind of a Power BI Copilot side, but also separately. Over time, you should expect to see it. I just don't have a timeline or anything to share around that, but just know that there is activity ongoing to make sure that we unblock these scenarios. But the first step, first way, would be really through Copilot Studio, where you can surface it in teams. It's not M365 Copilot, but you can build your own agent Copilot.
Okay, great. We have a comment from Takes Cake, more Power Platform integration. Woo! So excited that you're excited. Okay, great. So keep the questions coming. I'm gonna go through Reddit and see if there's any more. And then to the team here, if there's anything you want to add or chime in, feel free, or demos that you want to share.
Sorry,
so there's
Wait, who's that? Sorry.
So I'll keep going with the questions.
Yeah, let's see if there are any questions. We can always, I'll post a link to the recent blog on the AI skill, and we do have a demo. That demo is also posted there, but I'm happy to share that demo for those who aren't familiar.
The question that we did not answer, joined, I can read it, or we can paste it in the chat. It's quite long, but let me paste it in the chat.
I actually see a question there.
Yep. So Mohammed is following up and says, yes, I was meeting Power BI Copilot. Our dream is that our users can go and ask anything related to the data in the model, and they get good answers. But what we have is not meeting this expectation.
So yes, we have a bunch of announcements coming very soon to help you here, so that you can reach this dream. I would stay tuned for next week. I won't spoil, but our goal is to help you get the ability for a user to come in and ask questions against any semantic model and get good answers. And part of the announcement next week, I'll kind of spoil a bit, is we've just rewritten the entire answering engine to be able to help do a much better job here. So it's much improved. We see, like, even in our internal testing is like drastically improved, the accuracy. So there's going to be a bunch of announcements starting next week. And again, I'll repeat, next week is FabCon, which is the main Fabric conference. It happens twice a year. And it's when we give out a ton of announcements for our product, release many cool things, and there'll be something around this next week. It's in Vegas, for those of you who do not know.
Great. And then any timeline for when we can add sample questions in AI skills?
Sample questions. So we do support what we call internally few-shot examples or example questions or queries. So you can add that for Lakehouse, Warehouse, and EventHouse KQL database. You can't add that today for semantic models. But again, we are working on evolving some of this tooling so that you'll be able to provide more of those things as well across every source. So if you mean, so I would really ask, like, if you mean like example questions, like few-shot examples, that is supported for most of the sources. If you mean something else, like sample questions, please clarify in the chat.
Okay, great. And while you're doing that, we could go to a question that Mohammed, you had pasted from Reddit. So I'll read it and then you can address it. I wanted to get a clarity on the following scenario. If I'm procuring F64 SKU and would need Power BI P1 capacity for my dashboarding requirements, want to understand if all of my capacity units are tied to Power BI P1 usage. Is it possible to use the warehousing capability of Fabric when my load on the Power BI environment is low? Trying to understand if F64 can be shared between P1 and non-Power BI workloads like notebooks. Copilot.
Yeah, this is a very common question. So today, a P1 is equivalent to an F64. So if you have a P1 SKU today, and a ton of you probably do, you can use all of Fabric, including Copilot, on your P capacity. So you can absolutely use your P capacity during non-peak times and do notebooks, do warehousing, do databases, do real-time analysis. You can use the same P capacity to do everything. And that's the promise of Fabric, is you only need to have purchased one thing from Microsoft and then you can share it across workloads and effectively benefit from economies of scale. So that's the dream and that's the reality that we've hopefully posted. But you do not need to purchase an F64 SKU specifically just to use the Fabric pieces. Now, you may have seen a blog that may have added some confusion in saying, every P SKU will convert to an F SKU. And that's just, as I said, a P1 is an equivalent to an F64. We're going to try to simplify it so you don't say, we don't give you every single letter of the alphabet. We give you a single letter, an F, and we're going to converge to a single letter in some point in the future. And I think in the next couple of years, I think we announced. So if you already have a P SKU, you can use all of Fabric today. So you can do that exact scenario. We have customers doing this today where they're running notebooks in the evening to set up their data prep. And then in the morning, they do some more data prep in notebooks. And then during the day, they use that peak capacity for Power BI. That's an absolutely useful and most used use case when it comes to Power BI and Fabric.
Thanks, Mo. And then following up, there is a question about from the Mosey about prompting techniques. So are there best practices to be followed in prompting techniques for copilots in Fabric outside the suggestions given there? Can we specify what we need as part of summarization of pipelines? Who wants to take this one?
So I think we have published so I think this is a hard question for us to publish. We have published some documentation around how we expected to do prompting across all the copilots in Fabric, not just specific to pipelines. I think the reality is and you guys should understand this, is we constantly update the models. And as we constantly update the models that we use, the prompts that may work in one model may not work in the second model. So it's been very hard for us to kind of give general guidance. And we ask you guys to, find best practices and share them. But it's something we are looking into, and our goal is to kind of publish a white paper for Copilot and best practices for Copilot. And so you'll see some improvements here from us and just general documentation. But I've seen sometimes customers get very inventive and very exploratory when it comes to prompting. And I think that's just been the nature of just the way these LLMs work. But I'll defer to Raj and Nelly if they have any other comments there.
Raj, do you want to comment on this?
Yeah, I think, it's best to try and not get too complex with prompting engineering and Copilot. And I say that because you tend, it's natural to try and figure out, how do I hack at getting Copilot more information? Maybe, I can use things like chain of thought. Maybe I can use things like X or Y or Z. One thing that I can say, having been on the PG side of interpreting those Copilot questions, is the idea, to get what you're looking for is to be as explicit and as direct as possible, right? Without having to try and figure out, how do I feed this information in a sentence? And the teams, that support all of the different functionalities that you see know and are aware that the idea is to create the least slope of resistance to get you the answers that you need. So just focus on being explicit, being direct, and if you don't get the information that you're looking for, providing more and more, not necessarily to be verbose, but specific to what kind of thing you're looking for, and things will kick in. I would say that. So yeah.
And some of the things that we are looking at doing more, because ultimately, you should be able to have a conversation with Copilot. That's really what it is. And for example, if we speak about the Copilot for the notebook, right? It is by having a conversation, it means that you can actually have a multi-turn conversation, provide more context in the follow-up questions, and say, hey, I didn't mean that, I meant it this way, or clarifying. But one thing that we are working on is to become better at also collecting that context from the user. You see this a lot in many other, Copilot style experiences, right? Where essentially the agent or the chatbot is asking you clarifying questions. And I think that that's kind of the next step for us to also essentially to resolve ambiguity, collect that context from the user, and asking if something is unclear is very efficient way of getting more context and making sure that the Copilot really understands what task you're after, what you're really trying to get. Now, for example, I would say the reason I mentioned the notebook is also because when you're coding and essentially in a notebook, you can do so many different things, right? You're not going there to, let's say, generate me T-SQL or DAX or whatever it may be. It's actually you can do a ton of things, right? And I think that's why we also feel like it's extra important that we do that, resolve that ambiguity and essentially help the user. So those are some of the things that you should expect to see in our experiences going forward, is that where we will ask you when we don't fully understand what you're trying to achieve. Just wanted to add that.
Great. Thank you, everyone. I know we're actually close to the top of the hour. So I do want to thank everyone because you spent an hour with us. I know everyone's busy. Taking an hour out of your day is, is very important. And so I just want to flash this slide up because we mentioned this a couple of times already. We are hosting FabCon next week. If you don't have tickets yet, go ahead and register. Meet us in Las Vegas at the MGM Grand. We have a lot of exciting updates. So this, what we shared with you today, are the announcements that we made previously. We will have more exciting updates to share next week. And so please join us. And otherwise, please continue giving us feedback. We monitor all of the threads on Reddit, community forums, etc. And so excited to continue this journey down Copilot and AI with you. And so thank you, and see you next time. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you all. Thank you all for joining, and thank you to our speakers. And we look forward to hopefully seeing some of you at FabCon next week. Here is some more information on how you can contact with the team. And with that said, we are always looking for feedback. So if you could take a moment and complete our survey, we would greatly appreciate it. And all feedback is welcome. The key thing here is that you want to enter today's event code, which is 24589. Once again, that is 24589. Hope to see you on the next episode, and hopefully we'll see some of you next week. Have a great day.